Do you want to leave your home country for good? Have you been wondering what motivates other people to do so? Well, stick around and find out. Hello, I am Kimberly Ann, also known as Expat on a Budget. In 2022, I left the United States and I moved to Portugal, sight unseen, all by myself without ever visiting the country before. So I would love to talk to you about my adventure and how you can make your dreams come true as well. In this video, I want to talk about my main reasons for living. And number one was the high cost of living. So let's go there first. I could not afford to stay in the United States. Now, I completely understand that my experience is probably different from yours because I am from California. Born and raised, lived there my entire life until I moved to Portugal at 56 years old. So yes, many other places in the US are not as expensive as California. However, you might be having this same issue in that as much money as you're making, that's what you're spending. It's called lifestyle inflation. And so no matter what I made, I spent. And I saved. I remember my first year when I was finally making six figures, which is pretty much what you need to make to live in California. And I was so excited. I had saved a huge chunk of money, or I thought it was a huge chunk of money, and I was thrilled, and I told everybody, I saved all this money, ah! And then my accountant said to me, I'm so glad that you saved that money because that's exactly how much you owe in taxes this year. And there went my savings. And I was on this perpetual hamster wheel, right? So I always needed to earn more to cover my lifestyle. Now, again, and I'm gonna talk a lot about money on this channel because I'm expat on a budget, so I wanna be really transparent about that. I know that my overhead was more than most people, probably. I had my own acupuncture business, and I was renting an office space, and I was buying supplies, and at one point I had quite a few employees, but by the end I didn't have any employees, it was just me, and my overhead was still $10,000 a month. And I know that seems exorbitant, and it is. But my best friend recently told me that if he just stays home, he doesn't have an office space, he works for somebody, he doesn't have his own business, he doesn't have anything other than his already owned condo that he's already paid for. It's paid in full. And he told me that just to survive in Northern California, and this is not in San Francisco, this is in Oakland, without going out or doing anything and eating on very little money, eating cheaply, he spends $5,000 a month. So he said, my minimum just to live, just to survive is $5,000 a month. And that's what I found too when COVID happened and I had to stop working. That's a lot of money, I think, for just the minimum of overhead. The minimum to have a life where you can't go out, you can't go to the movies even, you can't go out to dinner, but just to survive. I didn't like that. And that was the main, at the time when I decided to leave, that was my main reason for leaving. So I don't know what your whys are, and I would really love for you to write them down and contemplate them, and then look and see what countries will solve the problem that you're having. So I'll use that as an example. California was no longer affordable. I knew that I had to live on $2,000 a month. I knew that I had that personally, I had that in passive income. You might not, and I will talk in other videos about ways that you can earn remotely and you can still make this happen, or work exchanges that you can do. But let's just say whatever amount of money you have, and this will be another video as well, but let's just say whatever amount of money you have, $2,000, $1,000 a month, you can look and see what areas in the world that you can live in on that amount of money. And then you can move on from there and find out if you qualify for the visas or how to get visas. And there are ways, believe me, there are ways. So I will also talk about those ways in future videos. But that was my number one, was affordability. My number two was work-life balance. I did not have that. I worked, in order to make the money that I made, I had to work 2 full-time jobs. And I basically worked 2 full-time jobs for 40 years of my life. And I'm a workaholic, it's fine. I love working and I love what I did. I was almost always an entrepreneur. And I always loved my jobs and my careers and my businesses and all that. But I didn't want to work all the time. I wanted to enjoy life and I wasn't. I was no longer enjoying life. So that was my number two. Okay, I'm going to say my number three was healthcare because I couldn't afford the healthcare in the US. I didn't realize that healthcare elsewhere is so much better. And I'm not saying everywhere else, but in many countries, many countries, it is so much better. In Portugal, for example, it is so much better. In Spain, in France, everything's covered. It's amazing. And it's, as my best friend says, cradle to grave. So you are taken care of throughout your life and it's either free or affordable. And the healthcare that I receive here is better than anything I ever received in the US. Like so much better, which I will also talk about in the future. Again, a lot. So that is reason number three. Reason number four, political and social tension. And I left in 2022 and it wasn't as maybe contentious as it is now in 2025 when I am filming this. But it was still, there was just a lot of anger and a lot of division. And I'm happy to listen to people who have alternative points of view to mine, but I don't want to argue about it. I don't want to change anybody else's mind. I don't want them to change my mind. I just want to have an open-ended discussion or no discussion. And I don't want that to be the defining factor of a relationship or of basically anything. It's too black and white for me, and I'm a shades of gray person. So that was huge. And the last reason, number five, was safety. I never felt safe in the US. I would not leave my house at night without a stun gun in one hand and pepper spray in the other. And I lived in a very safe area, and there were still tons of problems. And I could go into all of the issues that I had. There were some really scary and bad things, but I won't. I'm not going to go into all that. I'm just going to let you know that it was terrifying. I was terrified all the time. And living in Portugal, I am not scared. You can leave, now I don't do this, but I have Portuguese friends who do. You can leave your phone on the table or the counter in a diner or cafe. They're not diners here, but you understand what I'm saying. And go to the bathroom and come back and it's still there. I left my purse on a chair once in a restaurant in San Francisco for 3 minutes and it was gone. It was gone. I think I went to the counter to pay and it was gone when I got back. So, and never found again. I'm just gonna say that for me, being a single female, safety is really important. And I feel much safer. Now, I'm not saying it's perfect here. There are plenty of issues, plenty of problems, but the 5 reasons that drove me to leave the United States, I don't have problems with here. I am so happy that I made the decision to move abroad. And if you're feeling the same way, I am here for you. I am a huge cheerleader. I've got a great community on Substack that is free that I will invite you to. I'm hoping to start a community here. And I would love to hear from you in the comments and hear what your biggest reasons for wanting to leave your home country are. And if you want to, I would love it if you would subscribe. And then in the description down below. I do have a newsletter link, and you'll get a bunch of freebies to help you out on your move forward. And then also you will be subscribing to my weekly newsletter, where I give a lot of tips and a lot of information on this subject. So thank you so much for being here. Let's make your dreams of moving abroad come true together.